Welcome to Loving Out Loud, how to improve communication, sustain sexual passion, and create lasting love relationships. My name is Paula Smith, and I'm your summit host. Loving Out Loud is about loving fiercely and showing up in a different way to create a new reality, one that allows you to access your deepest truths and desires. No matter where you are in the love and life cycle, Loving Out Loud is a prescription for awakening your heart, your mind, and your body to a deeper consciousness and a more authentic and intentional self-expression. Welcome to Loving Out Loud. We have a very special guest today, Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Known to millions as Dr. Love through her website, AskDrLove.com, Dr. Jamie Turndorf has delighted readers and audiences for 3 decades with her engaging blend of professional expertise, spicy humor, and ability to turn clinical psychobabble into easy-to-read concepts that transform lives and heal relationships with spouses, partners, friends, family, and colleagues. Her methods have been featured on all the national networks, including CNN, NBC, CBS, to name only a few. Her Ask Dr. Love radio show can be heard in Seattle on KKNW and on webtalkradio.net, which broadcasts in 80 countries worldwide. Dr. Turndorf is the author of the new Hay House book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, Dr. Love's 10 Simple Steps to Cooling Conflict and Rekindling Your Relationship. Her new book on grief therapy, Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased, will be published by Hay House in August of 2014. Here is our recent conversation. So, welcome, Dr. Love, Dr. Jamie Turndorf, our special guest here on Loving Out Loud. What a privilege to have you on my summit.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
So, Dr. Love, I understand that you have a new book coming out that you're going to talk about today with our listening audience. The book is called Love Never Dies. Can you tell us how that book came about?
Yes. And actually, I'm losing my virginity here talking about it for the first time.
To me?
Yes, wow. I'm losing it with you, girlfriend.
Really special. Yeah. We're connected for life.
Exactly. I'm bleeding on the floor. No, my heart is bleeding. So the book's going to be published August 26th by Hay House. And it tells the true story of my spiritual reconnection with my husband, Jean Pain. I begin the book by describing how we met, our amazing love story. In fact, what's so amazing is that I had a premonition of him from the time I was a young girl. Wow. I actually saw him completely fleshed out. I knew what he looked like. And so I said, okay, I'm going to just wait until that man appears in my life. And I waited, which was very, very Renaissance of me, And on the first day of my freshman year at Vassar, he did appear. I was shut out of all the introductory sociology classes, and I was told that he was the chair of the Department of Sociology. So I opened up his office door after he said, come in. And I had the most amazing experience. It was like an out-of-body experience. I felt my soul leave my body, shooting at high speed through a tunnel to the end of my life. And then when my soul kind of shot back into my body, I get this message: remember every aspect of this meeting. He's going to be everything to you one day. Wow. It was the most amazing thing. Wow. And I completely forgot until my senior year when I needed help with my thesis. And he was not my advisor, but I knew that he had been a statistician, among other things, which I'll tell you in a second. Mm-hmm. And so he helped me with my thesis. And within a few weeks, we were madly in love with each other. And what is so amazing is, despite our different cultural backgrounds, religions, I found out had been for most of his life one of the most famous Jesuit priests in history.
Wow.
He taught at the Vatican. He founded their first and only international social research center that was designed on his part to conduct research to see whether the church was actually meeting the needs of the faithful. Wow. So he taught himself 10 languages. He went all over the world conducting research, and he actually changed the way the church ministered to the faithful. Mm-hmm. And he also founded a movement called Liberation Theology, designed to fight church oppression from within. He was this radical feminist priest. Yeah. And eventually he fought the Pope and the Catholic Church. They were trying to block the legalization of divorce, and his fight ultimately resulted in the legalization of divorce, changed the course of history in Italy. Then eventually the Pope gave him the dispensation so that he wouldn't be excommunicated, and he left the Jesuit order and the priesthood, and he was recruited by Vassar to be the chair of their Department of Sociology. So here I am, this young freshman, and now I'm in my senior year asking him for help, and I find out, he was, this famous Jesuit, changed the course of history, had 10 doctoral degrees, spoke 10 languages. Meanwhile, I was raised by 2 devout Jewish atheists. Yeah. The only religion they taught me was to not believe in God or the afterlife. So he and I were just absolute soulmates, crazy for each other. We did everything together, traveled together. We were together for 27 years, had an amazing life together. In the last year of his life, I had this terrible premonition he was going to die of an accident. I just didn't know when or where. So on the day we left for our final vacation to Italy, our rose arbor was struck by lightning, and then I saw about 50 black crows, and I just said, uh-oh, something bad's going to happen. So we went to Sperlonga, Italy, in spite of my bad feelings, and he was stung by a bee while we were on the beach.
Did you know he was allergic to bees?
He had never been stung by a bee before, and it turns out, I found out the hard way, you don't have to be allergic to a bee to die of a bee sting, because bee venom causes vascular constriction, pulmonary pressure and tension, and it causes your lungs to fill with fluid, and if you don't get an antihistamine, you literally drown. So I watched my beloved Jean drown in front of my eyes as he suffocated to death. And it was so traumatizing. There's no way to explain having him ripped from me. And I go back to the hotel room alone without him, and I'm lying there in the bed, trembling and shaking and hysterical. And the next thing I know, I feel his hand stroke the entire length of my spine. And I know what I'm feeling. I felt it, and I pop up. This was just the beginning. He has been with me ever since. And in Love Never Dies, I tell the amazing story of his manifestations, his spirit presence, his proof that we don't die, that relationships don't end in death, love never dies. And he asked me to tell our story to prove this to people, because he wants everybody to know. And his manifestations, they are so over the top. I mean, I could go on because I've thousands of examples. Do you want me to just tell you a couple?
I do. I especially resonated with the chipmunks.
I was going to tell you that. Okay, so, the first night, and this is very significant, and I'll get to the chipmunk. Okay. The first night I come back from Italy, of course, I'm not sleeping. Right. I'm lying in the bed, and I hear Jean talking to me. I know he's speaking, and he's quoting to me something, but I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. So the next morning, I go to the priest to prepare the readings for his funeral, and I say to the priest, my husband is speaking to me. And the priest raises his brow in obvious skepticism, and then I tell him what Jean said. And the priest goes white, crosses himself, and he says, "Dear God, Jamie, at first I didn't believe you, but I do now. Mm-hmm. You're quoting an obscure biblical passage from the Communion of Saints." Like I would know. Mm-hmm. I hadn't read the Bible or gone to church or synagogue, and Jean and I didn't discuss religion, at least not while he was living in a body. Mm-hmm. So it actually took me a year to understand why he chose to quote that passage to me. Mm-hmm. He was giving me the foundation of my new grief therapy method that was soon to be born. So the passage says that your loved ones in spirit are one with or in communion with God and the saints. And since we're supposed to stay in communion with and communication with God and the saints, it means we're supposed to stay in communication and communion with our loved ones in spirit as well. So he was basically saying to me, Jamie, there's a biblical foundation for this. What we've been told about the afterlife is dead wrong. You don't need to wait to die to be reunited with loved ones in heaven. That just leaves us even at a greater loss. And he's saying, absolutely, we should reconnect and stay connected. And of course, parents who have lost children, children who have lost parents, the elderly who may not wish to form another primary attachment, people who have had a loved one ripped from them due to sudden tragic illness, death, from an accident. So he was saying we should stay connected, reconnect, stay connected. So the next morning, I come down, and again, I was sleepless. You know, I'm just in a fog. And I feel him saying to me, open the back door, Jamie, open the back door. So, of course, I open the door, and sitting on the back step is a chipmunk. Now, he knew of my special love for chipmunks. And I sit there, I'm standing, and I see the chipmunk sitting there in a trance. So this was the first time that I noticed spirit will often come through what I came to be labeling open vessels. You know, animals, wild animals, domestic animals, children, the elderly, the mentally ill, you know, people who are especially open, healers, light workers. So that chipmunk begins to mimic my husband's death. And he starts ripping at his little face, like mimicking the way my husband was trying to pull the oxygen mask from his face. And I'm watching this little creature choking and mimicking it. And I am crying my eyes out watching this because I know my husband is somehow moving through him and showing me this. And after 20 minutes of this, I literally see the chipmunk cough up something from his lungs, and he's in peace. So I was just hysterically crying. I knew that was my husband's, you know, visitation. I knew he was showing this to me. And then I go into my office to write the eulogy for his funeral. And I just magically, it just comes out on the page. And as I get to the last line, I type, you were my north, my south, my east, and my west. I put my hands in my lap, and the word were changes to are. I didn't touch the keyboard.
Wow.
So, and I change it to were, he changes it to are. Were. I mean, so many examples like this. I tell thousands and thousands of these examples. So as a result of my discovering that, yes, we're supposed to stay in communication, right? And seeing for myself that our loved ones are standing here waiting for us, I developed a new form of grief therapy that vastly diverges from the Western approach, which is grieve, let go, and move on in 6 months. And if you're not done in 6 months, now we're going to say you have complicated grief syndrome, and we're going to give you medicine. So my method instead says, say hello, not goodbye. Reconnect. Now there's more, because I also know that Western grief therapy offers us no way of making peace with someone who's passed over. If you've got unfinished business, and I can't think of a soul alive who doesn't have some unfinished business with somebody who's passed, well, what are you going to do? You're SOL. So my method, by contrast, guides people how to not only reconnect, but also how to make peace. And I show you using this method I developed called dialoguing with the departed. You talk back and forth and you dialogue until you arrive at a healing. And the beautiful thing is, even if you don't believe in God or the afterlife, my dialoguing method will heal you. And I also, I show everybody how to make a reconnection all by yourself. You don't need a psychic or a medium, because we're all born with this gift to reconnect and stay in connection with spirit. So I show people how to open up their receivers, to create a state of receptivity so that they're able to send and receive signals from loved ones in spirit. And I have a whole chapter on how to recognize the signs, because since we've been told it's not possible, we don't notice the signs. We don't even see them. So, many people will say to me, I'm really jealous. Jean is so present to you. Well, I hadn't been told it wasn't possible or was possible. I didn't believe in anything. So I was open. But for most people who have been raised, especially in certain faith traditions that say it's not possible, they have blinders on, and they don't even know that their loved ones are constantly constantly knocking on their door, begging them to open the door of their heart. So just reading my list of all the signs is enough for people to say, oh, that happened, and so did that, and so did that. And that begins the reconnection right there. So that's pretty much it.
It's beautiful. Dr. Love, I'm curious about the whole dialogue piece.
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
What happens is I show you how to go into a state of receptivity. Okay. Then I have a meditation that I take you through, which is going to be great when the book comes out also in audio, because then you'll be hearing my voice, putting you into this meditational state. And then as I walk you through this meditation and bring you to the shore where, you are going to cross over, symbolically crossing over, because as Jean said, death is an illusion. There's a very thin veil between the realm where you are and the realm where I am. I'm standing right here. So I help you to just cross that veil, and then we dialogue. And I actually have in one chapter, I show examples of all my patients, all the people I've worked with, how I've helped them to dialogue. So, like for example, one woman, we were in group, and her father had persistently sexually molested her as a child, and then he left home. And she was so distressed, her whole life depressed and anxious. And one day, in the group, I put her in the trance and invited her to dialogue with her father. And the most amazing thing happened. Here we were in the dialogue, and her father, literally everyone in the room heard him. The patient said, "Why did you leave me? I hated your guts." She started where she was, from the little girl who was so furious. "You left me, you molested me, and then you left me, and every day I went to the mailbox, and where were you? Why didn't you come back? Why didn't you write to me?" And all of a sudden, in her dialogue, she actually heard her father saying, "I didn't know." That's what she heard. "I didn't know." But other members of the group heard the complete sentence. "I didn't know what else to do." That, because in those days there wasn't therapy, she was in her 60s. So she went back and forth, and I show you how to dialogue. You can dialogue using, writing. You can dialogue orally. You can dialogue, and when you dialogue, you speak out loud. And you also dialogue out loud what you're hearing the other person say, the being in spirit. And you keep doing this back and forth, and you accept yourself right where you are. If you're angry, you stay angry. And this is the cool thing about the dialoguing. What we need to realize is when our loved ones enter the spirit realm, they are instantly evolved. This means they have a much better perspective of where they messed up with you in life. And as I say, often you need to wait for them to be in spirit form to work it out with them. When I discovered this was like the first week after Jean left his body. I went to take my car in for service. Jean always did it, so I didn't know who worked there. And I walk up to the desk, and there's a woman there named Debbie. And she says, "My husband died too." That's all she had to say. The next thing I know, her husband's dialoguing with me. So I discovered I hear them all. Jean opened the door, now I hear them all. So her husband's talking to me, and he says, "Tell her to stop making the same mistake that I made with our son." So there it was. Wow. In spirit form, he's saying, "I get a better perspective. I know where I screwed up." And I say this to her, and she blinks, and she says, "Well, I am doing what my husband used to do." And I said, "Well, he's telling you he screwed up, so don't make the same mistake." So he was evolved, he knew, and he was telling her, "Don't mess up the way I did." So the point is, sometimes we have to wait for somebody to die to make peace, for the dialoguing to bring about healing that we never could have achieved when they were living in a body, which is so exciting to me, because my whole life, my whole mission has been to help us make peace, to connect souls, Right. And actually, I don't know if you know this, a psychic told me recently, your calling was born in the hospital. You were born 3 months early, and I spent the first 3 months in a preemie nursery. So she said, you decided then you were going to connect souls because you didn't want people to suffer the pain of this kind of isolation. And it's true. My whole life, that's all I've done, is help us connect, help us make peace. And, my first Hay House book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, presents my proven conflict resolution method. Now I'm bringing that method to the world of after-death communication, and I'm helping us not only reconnect, but make peace, too.
What a gift, Dr. Love. Amazing, amazing. I'm sitting here, just like the first time I talked to you, I'm just sitting here speechless Because I have so many questions.
Well, talk to me, because you know I could talk the arms and legs off a snake, so talk to me. Ask me anything.
So, I mean, I'm sure there's some people watching that are thinking, wait a minute, wait a minute, this can't be true.
Which part?
The part that we could actually, that love never dies. That, I mean, there's some faith traditions out there where people think that once you're dead, that's it. And I know you come from maybe a similar background, because you told me that pursuing this cost you relationships with your family.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah, but I had to tell the truth.
You had to tell the truth.
The week before Thanksgiving, I prayed to Jean, and I said, me praying? I mean, praying, but I prayed. Speaking of praying, I'll tell you, I discovered one way to dialogue with him was through prayer. Isn't that interesting? Praying to him, because he's one with God. Praying to him for other people. One day I'm driving on Route 82, and I say to him, please help my friend Emily find love. She's never found love. And I feel this tidal wave of love pour into me, and I knew this was Jean's acknowledgement. I've heard you. I look at the clock. It's 5:53. That night, Emily phones me. Now, Emily has never met Jean. She's never seen Jean. Didn't know what he looked like. She says to me, Jamie, I have to tell you what happened. I said, what happened? She says, at 5:53, I fell into a trance, and your husband appeared to me. I'm not kidding you. Wow. She describes exactly what he looks like. She says to me, he told me to find love, follow the gravestones to the church in your neighborhood. Wow. Can you imagine? Now, I mean, this was his way of connecting that I heard you, Jamie. I heard you said help her find love, and I'm answering you and confirming it through this other person, right?
Right.
So we go to our professional group in the city, and she tells the story, and another member of the group says, oh my gosh, what church did he send you to? And she says, the Claremont Church. Well, she hadn't told me this when we spoke. I didn't know what the Claremont Church was. Well, this other member of the group says, the Claremont Church? That's New York's only liberation theology seminary. Jean founded liberation theology.
Wow.
So it was his way of also putting his stamp on this to help her, to let her know finding love begins for you and reconnecting to spirit. But he was also saying to me, Jamie, see, I got it. I'm all over it. My stamp is on it. So my family, when they found out what was going on, and I said to Jean the week before Thanksgiving, I prayed to him, please remove any obstacles to my bringing this message out to everyone in the world so everyone knows the truth. And within a week, I had lost my father. He was out of my life. Wow. He found out that I had this ability, that I was, helping people reconnect, and we were done. That was it. Which is very painful for me, because I'm a new widow, a young widow, but I knew that this was the path I had to take. I had to have the courage. And really, this is going to be a very, very special day for me because this is the first time I'm actually telling my story publicly. So, see, the bell is ringing now. Did you hear it?
Yeah, I did hear it.
Yeah, right. All right. So the bell is ringing to take note of.
It's time. It's time. So do you hear the messages as clear, does it come in other languages?
No, see, most people are not what's called clairaudient. Clairaudient means you actually hear a voice.
Okay.
I don't have that, and most psychic mediums don't. What I get is a thought that just pops into my head. It comes out of nowhere, and I know it's not my thought.
Okay.
And once I describe this in the book, and other people read about it, and they say, oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's just a boonk. It comes out of nowhere, and you know it's not yours. Right. Like when he, was telling me that passage from the Bible. Clearly it wasn't mine, because I don't know nothing about it, the Bible.
Right. You know what's so funny? You remember when we talked about my brother and taking, that he took his life, and it's a blessing because he could have hurt a lot of people with his illness, and he was so gracious. He could have been anything. He was brilliant. It's so funny because in the kitchen, there was an arrow that points toward the bathroom so that my clients know where the bathroom is.
Right.
And it was like, oh my God, that arrow scared me. I don't know, for some reason it had some some energy to it because of the image that you and I spoke about, that he had, that his heart was pierced and that he was feeling really sad. And ever since that conversation, he's just been so, like, in my heart.
Ever since I spoke to you, about him.
You spoke to me about him, right.
Well, because he is always in your heart.
Right.
He said he calls you his little sis.
Really?
Are you his little sis?
I'm actually older.
But you're his little sis now.
But he's smarter. Right. Little sis. Yeah.
Your little sis.
Yeah. So, I'm sure there's some people out there who are wondering, is this real? Can we really do this?
You can really do this because it is our God-given right to stay in connection with God if you believe in God, the saints if you believe in saints, and your loved ones who are one with them. We are all born with these abilities. But, it's like, can I paint? Can I draw? Can I sing? We can all do all these things. It's just sort of a skill that needs to be cultivated. But the thing that's so amazing is, what I explain is, the most important skill is to be still. Because when I came home from Italy, I felt Jean guiding me to turn everything off. I turned the TV off. I turned everything off. And it was like I entered a monastic life. I sat in stillness. Because it is in the silence, he told me. He said, my little darling, the noise of the day drowns out my voice. Whenever you want to connect to me, be silent and still, and you'll hear me. So we all can do this. But one of the things about the Western culture, the Western society, is we're rarely still or quiet. So it's sort of like, if you want, putting yourself in a state of meditation. That is how the door of spirit opens. Then we also... To be able to do this, I talk about not allowing ourselves to become too washed overboard by emotional upset, because of course early in grief, one of the things that we do is we do get upset. And just as atmospheric storms block the reception of radio signals or TV signals, our emotional upset can block the sending and receiving of signals from spirit, because it's energy. So we have to be careful, and I talk about that. I show you how to not let yourself wash overboard, not get flooded, because that can block your reception.
And what about the depression? A lot of people go into depression after they lose someone.
Right.
It's sort of the same method in terms of, because it's energy, the depression is energy.
Right. So the thing is, obviously, when you're grief-stricken, the thing is, sometimes when you're very broken down, you're also broken open, because you're being broken open to love. So it's a fine line. Certainly, the barriers can be broken by being too upset, but you've got to watch yourself and judge. If you're too worked up, if you're getting too hysterical, it can sometimes block the transmission of energy, sending and receiving. So you've got to gauge that yourself. And, I literally take you by the hand and I show you how to do it. And I show you how to even establish a little group. But I'm going to be doing this on Ask Dr. Love. I'm going to run Love Never Dies, inner circles, so we can do it together. That will help, I'm sure.
This is wonderful. Dr. Love, any final thoughts for our grief? I'm sure there's people out there who are grieving, who are in pain. What can you say to them?
So I just want you to remember that your loved ones in spirit, even if they've messed up with you, even if they have unfinished business with you, they are here to support you until your days are through. They are reaching out to hold your hand. They want to make peace with you. They want to be your guides. They want to help support you through life's bumpy roads. They have never left you, and they will not leave you. You are not alone.
Thank you so much. So I know you're offering our watchers a free gift. Can you tell us about that?
Right, so when you go to my website, AskDrLove.com, you're going to see a little opt-in box. It says, join the love revolution.
Amen. Amen.
And then when you join the love revolution, you sign up for my email, my revolution. You put your email address in. You don't even have to put your name, I don't think. Then you will receive by email the preface and the introduction of Love Never Dies as my gift to you.
Amen. And we're loving out loud here with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Dr. Love, thank you so much.
It was so wonderful being with you.
Thank you.